yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented always by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. You know this. Now I call games for CBS, Westwood One, and the Philadelphia Eagles preseason, which will be here in just a couple months. It's crazy how fast this whole thing spins around again. Check me out on social media, please, at Ross Tucker NFL. If you were following this weekend, you would know that I had an awesome weekend up in Maine with my wife, celebrating our 20th anniversary. Had never been to Maine before. That was awesome on so many levels. Very, very hard to do vacations like that, getaways, when you have kids. So that was very, very cool. You can check us out on social at Ross Tucker Pod. All of our shows, including this one, are on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Check out Dr. Sills from the NFL. He's in charge of their health and safety. He's on today's Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And so if you love football and if you're listening or watching this show, I know you do, he had some really interesting things to say about an 18th game, about the field surface, about outlawing low blocks, which would really change the sport significantly. People don't realize that. The star of this show is my guy, Emory Hunt. I mean, even on Sunday, the guy's doing play-by-play and color commentary at the same time of the European League of Football. He is one of one. Emory is one of one at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. Of course, that draft guide, it's just an incredible resource. Now it's going to become, I'm pitching it to people as a preseason resource guide, or even over the next month, when you hear how guys are doing at OTAs and you hear about guys flashing at minicamp and you don't know anything about them, Emory does. footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. We've already done a couple of different divisions. I think we've done NFC South and AFC South, where we go through and we get Emory's thoughts on the draft picks for each. Today we'll do NFC North. We're skipping around a little bit because we're going where the news is. And I'm curious, Emory, two pieces of information. And I ask you this stuff because I think it's important from a draft perspective. And I think both these are interesting. Let's start with the non-NFC North news and just Brock Purdy getting that monster contract with the Niners. I don't remember how you had him rated, Emory. But what did the league miss with Purdy? Because it is interesting. Like, I see all these people with Shedeur Sanders. Like, the whole reason why Shedeur Sanders wasn't going to be a first-round pick is because he didn't have any outstanding physical trait. Which, by the way, just as an aside, like, what's Jackson Dart's, like, incredible physical trait? And he went in the first round, so that doesn't make that much sense to me. And then secondly, Brock Purdy just got $53 million per year, and I don't think that he is more physically talented than Shedeur Sanders. I'm not saying Shedeur Sanders is going to be Brock Purdy. Like, Brock Purdy is off the charts football intelligence and all those things. All I'm saying is there's still more to the game than just the physical part of it, and Purdy's just one of the latest guys to prove that. But I don't remember how you had him rated, Emory, when he came out, but what's the lesson there with Purdy? Because I got a lesson for sure.
Yeah, I wasn't as high on Purdy, to be completely honest, coming out of Iowa State. And I think the lasting image we had of him coming out of college was him taking that ill-advised knee on fourth down when they were trying to come back and win the ball game. So it was a lot of those head-scratching moments you saw with Purdy throughout the course of his college career. But here's where he got better. And here's where this is something you can't quantify or scout or gauge. It's the same thing with the Tom Brady and whomever, was picked late that ended up coming out on the other side and becoming a really good player. Imagine going in his draft class or with Trey Lance where they gave up assets to move up to go get this quarterback. So you're the second quarterback. You're like, oh, there's no way I'm playing with this guy. They just didn't take him in the first round. They moved around future assets to go get him. So he's going to get all the opportunity. But you go in there and you prepare and study and practice as if you're going to be the starter, not knowing whenever that time is going to come. They call it staying ready so you don't have to get ready. And lo and behold, things happen, and he had to get thrust into the lineup, and he was prepared for the moment, a la Brady when Bledsoe got knocked out, to where it's like, hey, man, hold on, Bledsoe's healthy, but hold on, this Brady dude is doing fine, man. Let him stay in there a little bit more. That's what happened with Purdy. And then he goes in there and plays really well. And so now it's like, okay, we can kind of continue to play our style of football. And honestly, I thought last year, I want to say like the first 4 or 5 games of the season, I thought he was playing his best ball, despite the record not being what it was or the team around him not being the same. And I think that's what people wanted to see. So you have to tip your cap to Brock Purdy for one, outplaying his draft status. And also, I mean, if we look at where his contract ranks, he's in that middle area of the top 10 with, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, those guys. And that's kind of where he is until he passes that mark. But I thought this deal was great for both parties involved.
That's pretty much what I said on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast earlier this morning. I like that he got life-altering money, but didn't feel like he had to be number 1 or number 2. You know what I mean? Like, he probably left a little bit on the table. I'll say 2 lessons that I have learned from Purdy. Number 1 is there is still and always will be a place for quarterbacks that have elite football intelligence, anticipation, and processing. No matter how much we want to talk about how big and strong Josh Allen is, or the stuff Mahomes does, or how fast Lamar Jackson is, and those guys are phenomenal. And maybe those guys are more the norm than the Brady, Manning, Breeze types. There is still a place for guys that are elite processors at that position, like Purdy. And clearly people didn't realize that he's an elite processor. Otherwise, they probably would have taken him higher. The other thing I'll say is it's a really good system for him. So much of it is going. And I got news for you right now. If he went to a bunch of other teams, he still wouldn't be starting over Trey Lance. Like that's how some of these other organizations are. He went to an organization that's not afraid to just put the better guy in. And guess what? When Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan were in Washington, they realized Kirk Cousins was better than RG3. So that's not the first time it's happened with them. Here's my advice for the Shanahans. Don't draft the first guy anymore, okay? Don't draft the first guy. Just like when you're going to draft 2, just draft the second one. He's better, okay? The other news, Emory, that I wanted your thoughts on, because again, sort of related to, scouting and the draft. News came out over the weekend. Caleb Williams tried to avoid getting drafted by the Bears last year. They were trying to figure it out. I guess Ryan Poles, the GM, said, I don't care, I'm drafting you no matter what. So he was aware of it. Your thoughts, Emory, on what came out from Seth Wickersham's book as it relates to Caleb Williams and his dad trying to avoid going to the Bears, and some of these things that Caleb Williams has said to his dad about the lack of support, I guess, in Chicago.
Well, it's so funny, Ross, seeing all the hoopla and stories. The first thing that caught my attention was how he was trying to go and play in the UFL. I'm like, oh. But when we bring up the idea on this show 2 years ago, everybody called us crazy, right? When people were like, yo, this is a legit option to go and bypass the draft process, go play pro ball, and then let the league pick you from there, because you technically are a free agent. You could pick your spots. But we crazy on this side. And the second thing was everybody was talking about the watching film part. Now, full disclosure, Ross, I have a little bit of empathy for him in that regard, because going from high school to college, I'm talking about myself, and it's this 2-a-days. It's the first time we're going inside the weight room. And we look at the whiteboard of what our lifts are. And I'm like, all right, cool. bench press, incline, all that stuff like that. Boy, when we got the hang clean, it was like 7 of us from New Orleans. We like, stop. Like, but I'd never seen a hang clean in my life. Like, I don't even know how to do this. Like, what you mean we got to lift this up, swing it up? Like, man, you crazy. You're going to try to kill us. Never done it, right? So, him saying I never watched film, like, they didn't tell me what to watch. Hey, man, I understand. What he's probably saying is, when going from high school, when you watch the film, you basically just watch your highlights. College, you get a little bit more in depth in terms of like the scouting report and what to look for and tendencies. Going from college to the pros is probably a different animal. So he's probably watching film like he did in college, not and missing what he was supposed to look for as a pro and getting surprised out there on game day and not having the success. So I wouldn't knock him for that because, listen, I didn't know what a hang clean was, no type of cleans was when I got to college. And boy, I had to learn pretty quickly and was embarrassed.
If you follow my social media at Ross Tucker NFL, you saw that I had a plethora of delicious beers over the weekend up in Maine. That was cool. First time up there, by the way. You know what else is cool? You can get free merch for drinking beer. But it's got to be Labatt, and you got to do the buy beer, get gear at rewards.labattusa.com. The fridge is insane. The backpack cooler, amazing. Buy beer, get gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. That is funny. I'll say this. First of all, I said this on the Ross Tucker podcast today. Emory, how do you and your dad tell a writer that this is like what you're trying to do? Like, why would you tell a writer this? Hey, if you really wanted to try to force your way out, you think the Bears are a bad franchise, we can have that conversation. But why are you telling a writer this and then you don't do it? Like, go through with it. Okay, that's a whole other conversation. But you don't go through with it. But then you tell the guy that you wanted to? Like, what is that? I mean, I don't know about Caleb, but his dad's awareness rating on Madden has to take a big hit after this, okay? Secondly, he said to his dad, I just watch film by myself sometimes. Hey, Caleb, so did I. Every day in the NFL, I watch film by myself. Good for you, buddy. You're supposed to. Like, I don't even know what that means. And I will say this, too. It's kind of insulting. All these people on social media, nobody taught him how to watch film. You know how insulting that? Lincoln Riley, every guy wins the Heisman. Every guy is the number 1 overall pick. You don't think Lincoln Riley ever showed those guys or talked to them about how to watch film? You think that they just show up and you're the Heisman winner from Oklahoma or USC and you go number 1 overall? It doesn't work that way. Like they were shown how to watch film in college on some level. So whatever. All right, we got to get to oh my gosh, we're halfway through. All right, Bears. Speaking of the Bears, Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan, Luther Burden, receiver, Missouri, and then Ozzie Trapillo, the offensive tackle from Boston College, Shamar Turner, the D tackle from A&M. Those are their first and second round picks, Emory.
Loved all 4, Ross. They got my number 1 player at 3 positions, my number 1 inline in Loveland, number 1 slot receiver in Burden, and my number 3 offensive tackle in Trapillo, who I had an 80 grade on. Big fan of him. 6'8", but plays like he's 6'5". So love that about him. Turner was my number 6 defensive tackle. And even when you look at Zy Frazier of UTSA, he was my number 8 field corner. And I spoke about this on day 3 of the draft. Kyle Monungai, running back, Rutgers, very underrated. They got him on day 3. He was my 13th ranked running back with a 77 grade, so I really thought highly of him. And we look at some of their undrafted free agents, Ross. J.P. Richardson was awesome at Oklahoma State. Transfers to TCU. He was a phenomenal player. He has a great chance to make a roster. Jade Walker of A&M was outstanding, in my opinion, when he was at Grand Valley State. Transferred to FBS football, played really well. And also Power Echols, linebacker of North Carolina. Keep an eye out for him. Very good linebacker that they were able to grab as an undrafted rookie free agent. So they knocked it out the park with this draft class. A+ for Chicago.
They also took in the fourth round Ruben Hippolyte second, the linebacker from Maryland. And why do they have all these picks from Buffalo? What was the trade? Like they have all kinds of picks from Buffalo. Um, and then they also took Luke Newman, the guard from Michigan State. Refresh my memory, Emory, on two things. One, why Burden ended up not being a first round pick after like coming into the year, it was top 10, top 10. Either he or T Mac were supposed to be the top receiver.
Hey, blew my mind because coming into the preseason, him and Travis Hunter was like 1 and 2 in terms of how the scouts viewed them coming into the year. So he had a high grade coming in. And so for me, I just thought that it was he got kind of lost in the shuffle in terms of, the 40 time that the other guys ran and the depth of the O-line, D-line in the class and, the other positions kind of pushed him down, but he should have been a first round pick. So Chicago, in a sense, got a tremendous steal, and their receiving core looks outstanding around Caleb Williams.
All right. And then Loveland over Tyler Warren. We might have talked about this a few weeks ago, but refresh my memory on your thoughts on that. I think that surprised a lot of people that watched college football this past year with all the hype Tyler Warren got. And you and I both love him. We talked about the AFC South a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he was my number one H-back, and Loveland is my number one inline. And after thinking about it, they kind of view Loveland more along the lines of T.J. Hawkinson in Detroit. So adding a Tyler Warren, albeit would have been a good football player, is kind of replicating the process that you have with a Cole Kmet. Even though Kmet is more of the inline guy, but they felt as though we need someone that's more of that, vertical stretch guy that could, win one-on-one. Not saying Warren can't do it, it just went with a different flavor of ice cream as opposed to going to, some other position. So I don't mind that pick. It makes sense when you think about it like that.
All right, next up, we've got the Detroit Lions. What's interesting about Detroit is they always do things a little bit their own way, and they've had a lot of success with it. Their first round pick was Tyleik Williams, D tackle from Ohio State. Their second round pick, Tate Ratledge, guard from Georgia. So they went with two big fellas with their first two picks, Emory.
And 3 out of the first 4 picks were big guys because in, I want to say the 5th round, they went with Miles Frazier out of LSU. So he was my number 5 guard. Tyleik Williams was my number 2 defensive tackle. Huge fan of him. I was one that thought he was going to go in the first round, and he went in the first round. And Ratledge was my number 10 guard. Very good grade on him as well. So what I love what Detroit did, if you look at their offensive line, they kind of gotten older a little bit, especially in some spots on the interior. So they wanted to get youth and infuse some depth there as well. They did that. Defensive tackle, we know how much they struggled on the defensive line last year with the injuries. And Williams was a game wrecker, built like a nose tackle, moves like a 3-tech. So I love the point of attack. And in between that, they went Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver out of Arkansas, who had a fantastic Hula Bowl, got the call up to the Senior Bowl, started there, and just built off what he did in the Liberty Bowl and against Texas Tech, I believe they played, where he had a fantastic game, went to the offseason, very underrated at the Hula Bowl, but then made a name for himself, then had also a good combine. So that was a good move by them, grabbing him up. So their first 4 picks were solid picks.
Okay. A lot of people wouldn't do this. I don't mind. I never heard of Tesla when they I heard of the car, but I never heard of Isaac Tesla when he got drafted. 3rd round? Where did this guy come from? I mean, he wasn't even on any of the lists I saw for the top receivers. And then all of a sudden he gets 3rd round with the Lions? Like, did you think that was too rich, or do you think he's deserving of it?
I didn't think it was too rich. I thought it was a solid pick, but what was fascinating was I was tweeting about him during the Hula Bowl, and it went unnoticed. And then he gets to the Senior Bowl, and then that's when many other draft people start to really dive into the draft. Despite them covering the draft all year round, they really start diving into the draft at the Senior Bowl. So that's when they start realizing if you're here, then you must be a prospect. Not realizing a bunch of call-ups came from the Hula Bowl this year, and Tesla was one of those guys. And, big body receiver that can play inside or outside. He's not going to separate, but he's going to catch everything thrown his way. And to me, that's worth this weight in gold because hands first as a receiver, then we can figure out everything else. But because he has great hands, I think that's why Detroit went with him. They are efficient in how they move the football down the field and getting receivers that can win in these short to intermediate areas of the field. That's where they thrive, and that's why that one made a lot of sense.
I love their next two picks. I love Ahmed Hassanein, the DN from Boise State. Met with him last summer, watched him on tape. Dan Jackson from Georgia. That guy makes every tackle, that safety. Brad, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Brad, what's his last name? Holmes.
Oh, Brad Holmes, yeah.
Brad Holmes, he knows what football players look
Yep.
like. He knows what a football player looks like. Those guys are going to make it. Those guys are going to make the team, and they're going to be contributors. And then they took Dominic Lovett, receiver from Georgia. Anybody else jump out to you? Any thoughts on those guys, Emory, or any of the undrafted free agents?
I'm right with you on Dan Jackson. I just love how he's always popping up. And you notice a theme here: Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Even as undrafted free agent, keep an eye out for Jacoby Keeney James, the receiver out of UMass. Tremendous punt returner, had a great game versus Georgia.
All right, looking at the Packers. You know what? Nobody has more draft choice than the Packers.
Right.
Every year, it's like 2 in this round, 2 in that round. So first round, Matthew Golden. We talked a lot about him during the process. But tell me about the next two guys. Round 2, Anthony Belton, the tackle from NC State. Round 3, another receiver. They have so many now. Savion Williams from TCU.
Belton was my number 12 guard or tackle with a 78, grade. So I have a really good grade on him. Big bear type of guy that can really just lock in and anchor down pretty quickly. So he's very good in terms of his core strength and what he does on the edge. And we talked about Savion Williams a lot. A guy that's 6'4", 6'5", 225 that can play tailback and run inside and make moves within the tackle box and bounce outside and stuff like that. Yeah, he had some drops, but man, you can't teach 6'5", 225 that can run like that and is versatile like that, that can play all three receiver positions. And when you even go further, I know they got Barron Sorrell out of Texas, but they got my number 2 outside linebacker, Sam Backer, and Colin Oliver out of Oklahoma State. Very underrated player. You got to go back to 2023 tape to watch him play. That's when he was a terror. Dealt with injury all season long, so he wasn't really the same player this year. But 2023, phenomenal talent. That's a steal right there. And going even into round 7 with John Williams, the tackle, my number 14 tackle. So right there next to Belton, they got him in round 7. And then there's undrafted free agents, man. Listen, Teron Herring, I saw him live out of Delaware. Outstanding corner, can also play a little bit of safety. Was excellent at the East-West Shrine Bowl. And how about this? We talked about him a lot. Taylor Elgersma was there on the rookie tryout camp. They end up bringing him back, signing him. That's a quarterback from Canada, and he's now on the roster right now too as well. So good overall haul for Detroit.
You were talking about Elgersma for a while there, the Canadian quarterback. And Savion Williams sounds like Cordero Patterson.
Yep, that's exactly who, and he looks like him too. You know what I'm saying? So he ain't put the vet weight on like Cordero has now, but you know what I'm saying? Let's hope he can avoid that and play a long time like he has.
All right, so the Vikings, they were the opposite of the Packers. They only had 5 picks. Donovan Jackson in the first round, the guard from Ohio State. I forget how you had him ranked, Emory.
He was my number 8 guard, 77.5 grade. Then he go ahead and take Ty Felt out of Maryland in the 3rd round. He was my number 3 flanker, or number 3 Z, if you want to call it that, with an 80 grade. Fantastic talent, explosive. Then they go and get Tyron Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia, defensive lineman, Kobe King, linebacker, Penn State. Solid players, both of those guys. And they round out their draft picks with Gavin Bartholomew, who was my number 5 flex tight end. So they got a steal there, in my opinion. But where they really racked up, Ross, is with these undrafted rookie free agents. Elijah Williams out of Morgan State called virtually his whole career at Morgan State, broke the sack record there. They signed him as an undrafted free agent as a rookie minicamp. This was somebody that could play start as an outside linebacker, grew into a nose tackle, but could play any one of the techniques up front. And then they went and grabbed Tyler Beatty out of BYU. Big fan of him too. That was my number 2, 3, 4 defensive end. Benjamin Urasek, tight end, Georgia, Stanford. Great get there as an H-back. And also Bryson Nesbitt, underrated tight end out of North Carolina. They got him as well. So I thought when you come in, Chaz Chambliss from Georgia, the edge rusher, another one that they was able to sign. So to me, this was a really good class for Minnesota. I'm excited to see how they do. All of what they've built is hinging on what they're going to get from quarterback J.J. McCarthy.
It's unbelievable, by the way. Even the D linemen that you don't hear about from Georgia, like Ingram Dawkins and Brinson, they still get drafted 5th and 6th round.
Yeah.
All we talk about is Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams. Even these other guys get drafted pretty high. Check him out at FBall Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.